Hook. She didn't hesitate that night. A row of police officers had surrounded a man on the outskirts of town. Leather jacket, tattoos, a Hell's Angel patch shining in the streetlight. Most would have turned around and gone home. But not her. She noticed something nobody else did. Fear in his eyes. A few minutes later, she stood between him and the strobing lights, and everything changed. By morning, her diner was the subject of gossip in town. Some branded her as brave. Others branded her a traitor. But nobody was prepared for what happened next, when the sound of hundreds of engines thundered down Main Street. Why 300 bikers sought her out. Marsha Lewis had never demanded much from life. Only peace, steady employment, and a little respect. She operated a tiny diner near the outskirts of Birmingham, where truckers and factory laborers made pit stops for hot coffee and a welcoming smile. Her days began at dawn, with hands scented of butter and coffee beans, radio music softly humming in the background. Everyone called her the woman who never turned anyone away, whoever they were. But in recent times, the air in town had shifted. The tabloids wrote of demonstrations, of troublemakers and outsiders, and even people she knew started to look at her differently. Whispers trailed her as she walked through the market. Some avoided her diner entirely. Then one rainy night, as lightning cut across the sky, that quiet shift became something else, something dangerous. She didn't know it yet, but the choice she'd make before dawn would test not only her courage, but the true measure of a community that claimed to stand for justice. The storm moved in dark and thick that night, pounding against the windows of the diner as Marsha cleaned down the final counter. The clock was past midnight when she saw the flashing lights outside, red and blue seeping through the rain. She had thought it was a drunk driver on Highway 52 at first. Then she saw him, a man, saturated, battered, hands up, backed against the alley wall next to her diner. His leather jacket had the unmistakable emblem of the Hells Angels. 3 officers stood around him, shouting orders she couldn't hear over the thunder. Then one of them pushed him so hard he staggered. That was the point something in her would not remain quiet. She went out into the rain, beating heart, apron remaining. He's bleeding, she informed them, though no one seemed to notice. The officers turned, eyes narrowing. One ordered her to go back inside, but she remained stock still. Perhaps it was instinct, perhaps it was faith. Whatever it was, it whispered to her that if she went inside, she'd regret it for the rest of her life. The man gazed at her, bewildered. He was the sort that most people in town would go out of their way to keep from running into. But for that moment, he wasn't a biker, a felon, or a stereotype. He was only a man who was scared for his life. When one of the officers went for his baton, she did the unthinkable. She stepped in between them. "He's hurt," she said once more, this time louder. The rain wetted her clothes, but she stood firm. The officers delayed long enough for the man to catch his breath. After a while, they handcuffed him, pushed him into the car, and told her to mind her business. By the time they sped away, her diner lights were a beacon of light in the storm. She was shivering there, thinking she may have just passed an invisible point of no return. The following morning, news traveled quicker than the clearing storm clouds. A few locals hailed her as a hero. Others claimed that she'd gone mad. Speaking up for one of them, by lunchtime, customers ceased to appear. By evening, someone had pinned traitor across her diner's front window. The fear didn't arrive suddenly. It insinuated itself quietly, like the aroma of burnt coffee that never quite goes away. She attempted to wash the word from the glass, but the letters remained. And just when she thought the worst had gone, she heard it, a low, far-off rumble. Engines, dozens of them, louder by the second. The noise rolled across the highway like thunder coming again. She stood immobile behind the counter, not sure if it was revenge or something even more surprising. The rumble of engines vibrated the earth under her feet. Marsha emerged, shaking with hands, as the horizon blackened with chrome and leather, row upon row of motorcycles arriving at the diner's dusty parking lot. The noise was overwhelming, a torrent of sound that raced her heart. Neighbors craned through curtains, phones already in the process of dialing. She believed this was it. that the bikers had arrived seeking revenge. The man she'd stood up for was one of them, and now his brothers were visiting to level the score. She steeled herself, gripping the doorframe as the first biker shut off his engine and removed his helmet. Rainwater trickled from his beard. His face was weathered, impenetrable. He approached her slowly, boots crunching over pebbles. Then, silently, he put something down on the counter within, a folded high jacket, the same style their friend had been wearing the previous night. No one said anything for an instant. The air was so motionless, she could hear the vibration of the neon sign overhead. And then, slowly, one by one, the bikers started walking into the diner. Not to harm, not to wreck, to occupy, to defend. They filled the windows, ordered coffee, and sat down quietly, their presence big but untroubled. Police cruisers stood at the edge of the parking lot, engines running. No one was brave enough to move forward. Marcia understood what was going on. They weren't here for revenge. They were here with her, standing against the rumors, the threats, the hatred that had sought to push her apart. For the first time since all of that night, she did not feel alone. But as she gazed out through the window at the blinking lights on the other side of the street, she realized something more profound. Taking a stand for what is right doesn't stop after one act of bravery. It starts there. And on that day, in a gray Alabama sky, the entire town would finally be forced to decide where they were at. By nightfall, the police had dispersed. The strobing lights diminished, the crowd dissipated, and only the buzz of motorcycles outside the diner remained. Marcia remained by the window, observing as the men she once feared hung discreetly, ensuring no one risked attacking her spot again. The same diner that sat vacant the previous night was now filled with individuals who didn't resemble her, but stood in her place nonetheless. News crews came the following morning. Reporters were seeking sound bites, short headlines of the woman who rescued a biker. For Marcia, though it was never about rescuing anyone, it was about noticing a person when everyone else was looking away. And in return, when the world turned its back on her, those whom she'd been instructed to fear are the ones who came. Business resumed normally eventually. Some never came back, but others did, initially quietly, then in droves. They did not come only for the food, but for what the diner had itself become. Courage when confronted with hate, humanity above fear. Weeks later, a letter came from the biker she'd assisted that night. It was brief. One sentence. You reminded us that decency doesn't wear colors or patches. Marcia kept the letter tacked to the corkboard behind her counter. A reminder that sometimes doing what's right costs something, but also that kindness carries further than malice. Because what went on in that diner wasn't about one woman or one evening. It was about the world we all inhabit. So the question is, when the time arrives to stand between right and easy, who will you be?